The pilot project is the acronym for Pursuing Intentional Learning in Organizations Together. And this is our non-academic career transition webinar series. Today, we'll be talking about putting research to practice, focusing your job search and building your non-academic career. This pilot project is sponsored by Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development. And also, we are sponsored by our MSU Graduate School, Arts and Letters College, Citizen Scholars Program, College of Social Science, and College of Natural Science. And we'll start with a poll to see who is in the room. We have done this twice in the past 2 weeks, and please answer several questions in the poll. And we want to learn where are you from and which stage are you in for your career development, and also how did you learn about the pilot project. And the pilot project is cooperation between MDARD and MSU this summer. Me and Gabriela Shirky are the graduate student coordinators. We are supervised by Dr. Julie Rajewski, and we also collaborate with experts from MDARD, Ashley Batin and Kaylin Schumacher. And additionally, Kenya Pebbles, Kaylin Schumacher, and Tara Hollis contributed a lot to the early stages of the development of the pilot project. And the pilot project aims to bridge the gap between graduate students and non-academic professionals. We have two series of events. One is the MSU seminars focused on career development. And the two is the MDARD DEI trainings offered by MSU experts. During the summer, we focus on the 4 stages of the non-academic career transition process: discover, respect, implement, build. We frame this based on the Beyond the Professoriate. It is free of charge with MSU login and a very useful tool. We also have 4 webinars offered by MDARD professionals. They will focus on each step, each webinar. And we also curated 3 DEI training sessions and related materials, and that will be happening at the end of MDARD. If you want to learn more about our framework adopted from the 4Rs indigenous approach, and all our events and related materials, please visit our website. And in the past 2 weeks, we explored discover and research, and we learned what kind of values, skills, and metrics we have, and put that into our research stage and identify and attract more non-academic opportunities. Now is the time to put that into practice and focus on your job search and building your non-academic career. And next week, we don't have any webinar. However, it's the time to take stock and reflect on what you have learned and what more you want to learn. Please take the time and still schedule to have a meeting with yourself and come back on August 11th. And by then, Stefan will join us, talk about how to navigate the non-academic transition process and share his lived experience, and we will envision our long-term career development together. And for the DEI training, it is conceptualized as a rippling effect seedling. We want to create positive social changes by applying all the academic skills, research creativity, and humanity from the graduate students and undergraduate students or recent graduates to the MDARD, MSUDI events. And through this, we want to see some ideas or conversations to the MDARD's institutional culture and also MSU graduate students' exposure to create off-campus influence. And we feel very gratitude to Dr. Julie Leibarkin, Dr. Amy Swenson-Buckley, and Dr. Luis Alonso Garcia. They will be presenting in the following weeks. And let's see our poll results, see who is in the room. We have 13 graduate students and 1 recent grads, and most of our participants are in the 2nd to 6th years. Which stage are you in? We have 7 in the research stage and 1 in the implement stage and 1 in the build and 2 in the discover and 2 not so sure. And I hope all of us will find some more answers through this webinar. And how did you learn about the pilot project? 11 learned about this from our email listserv. And moving to our webinar today, we will have Molly Mott and Stefan Roth talking about putting research to practice, focusing your job search and building your non-academic career. And welcome. And Molly Mott is in Industrial Hemp Program Manager in MDARD. And since 2001, she has curated program management, procedure development, law interpretation, and more. And Stephanie Roth, and she is a laboratory scientist and MDARD pesticide and plant pest management division. She is a PhD in molecular plant sciences and also worked in MSU Plant Research Laboratory. And now she's providing plant disease diagnostics and advisory service. And we will have 2 15-minute presentations followed by question and answer. Please enter your questions in Q&A box. And since Gabriela is not here and I might need some time to go through the quick Q&A box, and don't worry, we'll have time for that. And also our webinar ends at 3:45 p.m. and our recordings will be uploaded soon after the webinar. Please check our website for future information. And now we will have Molly Mott to have a presentation sharing her experience. Yeah.
Okay, can you see my cover slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thanks for that introduction. Again, I'm Molly Mott. I'm the Industrial Hemp Program Manager with the Department of Agriculture, Pesticide and Plant Pest Management Division. You're probably wondering from the photos, what exactly does this woman do? But we will get into that a little bit as I go along and kind of share my background with you and some tips that I've picked up over the years. Whoops. So I was first generation of my family to go to college. I have always loved like all things in the natural world, loved bugs, loved plants, and got a bachelor's degree in botany from Michigan State. Before I completed that degree, I started doing a job search. I was probably naively going about that and doing a very, very focused job search just on my degree and trying to figure out how I could use that. So it wasn't panning out very, very well at the time. But at the same time, I happened to be in a graduate level course in entomology. There was a little bit of crossover between botany and entomology topics. And I would say much to my luck, I impressed my professor at the time who offered me a job over the summer to see if I was interested in entomology, and a graduate assistantship after that, if I liked it. And I definitely did. So I ended up with a master's degree in entomology from MSU as well. And then right back where I was before, I was looking for a job. But this time I approached it a little bit differently. I had made a lot of good connections with professors and students and some industry professionals as I did my research for my master's. So at that time, I had heard everything from, well, I got all my degrees at MSU, so you better change to a different school for a PhD. You don't want to go to the same school for all of that. And I heard at the time, there were no jobs available for PhDs in entomology unless you're lucky enough to land one, when something opened up at a university. So given a lot of the comments I had at the time, I decided to go for a career. I didn't want to spend, back then, a lot of the professors funded their research by doing a lot of chemical efficacy studies on pesticides. And I did some of that when I was getting my master's, and I did not have a lot of interest in that. So I, at that time, figured I'm going to jump into the career world. So I approached it with more knowledge and less naivete than I did when I was an undergrad. And the main things, I'm sure you've probably heard these recommendations before, but the big differences for me were that really tailored my resume and my cover letter to each job that I applied for. And I applied for a very limited number of jobs that I knew I'd be interested in, that fit my skills, my abilities, and my interests. So I tailored my resume, I tailored my cover letter. Even if the job posting didn't ask for a letter of recommendation, I usually provided at least one. And I worked with whoever was writing it for me, often my professors, to make sure they tailored it just a little bit to the job posting, so it didn't seem like a form letter that got sent out from them. And then I also made sure to include some details in my cover letter that showed that I was interested in the company and I knew about them. And back when I did that, it was a little bit more difficult, these days with the internet. And that really sounds like I'm dating myself, but there just wasn't as much available then as there is now. So it's a really nice benefit to have that. So that first job didn't come right away, but I wanted to make sure my living expenses were covered. So as I was finishing writing up my thesis and defending, I worked at a florist. And I love that job as well, but that was not what was going to be my career. So with some really good letters of recommendation and tailored job applications, I was able to land a job at an environmental consulting company in Lansing. So it was close to where I was at already. And that was kind of my second big point to make, really, was that this job maybe just very, very briefly mentioned something about plants and insects. And really it was about environmental consulting in a larger perspective. So what was neat is that it was like research. It was like I was doing research, but I was not in academia. My group did projects ranging from wetland surveys about habitat and soil type, to botanical surveys, macroinvertebrate studies, which is, I've got the picture of the bugs up there, fish catch and release type studies for the DNR our company got contracted to do. And then even well out of my realm with things like researching historical contaminants in lakes on the west side of the state and sampling residue underwater and above ground for cement kiln dust. So it really was research, but I didn't call it research because it's not like it was led by a PhD. It was led by a consulting company supervisor dealing with projects where they receive funding from state agencies, as it turns out, like the Department of Natural Resources, or back then the Department of Environmental Quality. So I think it was a great job experience, and just because of a lot of diligent job searching was I able to find that and link something like that to my degree, but not very closely. After a couple of years there with new projects all the time, and my job title, ranged from entomologist to geological scientist, which I really didn't have any experience in. I wanted something with a little bit more consistency, and I was getting more and more projects put on my plate. So at that time, job hopping was pretty common after about 2 years to get a decent raise. So that's what I started doing. I did a lot of research online about what my pay should be. I did a lot of research on how to ask for a raise. And meanwhile, during that job, I did a lot of logging of what I did, my accomplishments, projects I worked on, my duties, and the increasing responsibilities that I had over time. So I asked for a raise. I got a smaller one than I asked for, with promise for something larger, but it was enough to make me get going on my next major job search. And so by that time, one of the things that really fell into place was networking. As you move up and on in your career, networking becomes more and more important. So in my current position, I happened to see a state job posting, didn't know much about the job itself, but in talking with one of my professors, they said, oh, I have a grad student finishing up her master's who I happen to know, who's now working in the state as well. So she can help you a little bit with understanding what that job is all about. So that was a great networking benefit right there. And it led me to this employment with the Department of Agriculture. With the state, it's very nice because with entry-level type positions, it's very structured. Pay is posted online. If you did enough digging, you could probably figure out what I make. Benefits are described. And it sounded like a really great place to be. And I took a pay cut to come here, but recognized that within a few years, I would be above the level I was already at. So even though the job changed, all the preparation was exactly the same. Researching the company, finding out who I knew that was in that business that could tell me what the job was like, and really understanding things like current employee culture, what your day-to-day job would look like, and things in that nature. So again, state of Michigan is great because they explain a lot of things online in the civil service division and with HR. So the state uses something called STAR for interviews, where you answer questions by phrasing a situation, your task, your action, and the response or outcome. At the time, they even had videos of how those types of interviews went. So do your research online, it often pays off. And so over time, I've loved working for the department, and I've skipped around from job to job as opportunities for promotion or just doing something different pops up. So I've worked as a pesticide inspector, a plant health inspector. I had a promotion when the Emerald Ash Borer program started. That's the green bug on the top right here. In the 2002 to 2010 range, this was still prevalent, but it was killing ash trees heavily then. So that was a grassroots program to help build. As that program wound down, I had an opportunity to jump back into our normal programs. So I became a pesticide lead inspector. And I want to point out that I did that with very little pesticide training, but the thing that got me that job were the skills that I had from the other positions that I was in. So I was able, the content you're able to learn. It's those skills that employers look at as you go from job to job. You don't have to know the content per se, but you have to be able to demonstrate that you can learn that content quick. After a few years, I became the pesticide enforcement program manager. So helping the state to issue fines to mostly companies that were doing bad things with pesticides, letting them drift, things like that. And then most recently, I became the industrial hemp program manager. So I've done that for a year and a half because it was a brand new opportunity to start a program practically from scratch. And that kind of brings me back to the beginning. What's hemp? Well, it is cannabis. So it is the same genus and species as marijuana, except that hemp is legal federally and of course at the state level, but so is marijuana, but marijuana is not legal at the federal level. And they have very different purposes. So hemp can be used for very industrial purposes like fiber, canvas, material, hempcrete, insulation, animal bedding. So it's got very industrial uses, but it is also grown for CBD. I'm sure you've heard of CBD before. That is a non-intoxicating cannabinoid in the plant. There's some of my botany coming back. Whereas THC is an intoxicating cannabinoid in the marijuana plant. So it's the same plant, same genus, same species, but different levels of THC. A high level of THC over 0.3% makes it marijuana. 0.3% or below makes it hemp. So that's what that difference is in a quick nutshell. So for a couple quick other tips for articulating your value, I can't stress enough that you keep an up-to-date list so that when that job opportunity comes up, you can pull from that list things that are tailored to what they're asking for all those things that you would typically need on your resume, your experience, your duties, your accomplishments, external leadership, volunteer work, training, certifications. You might think like that's all in your head right now, but after you get 5+ years in your career, you're going to value having that list. I'd also, when you do those applications and those cover letters, make sure you're using language that was from the job posting and from similar postings. I have a friend that I work with that always says words are hard. So if you can borrow some language that actually conveys in a nice way things you've done, that's great. So if I compare, I led a team to analyze insect larvae for fungal and bacterial infection. Okay, that sounds kind of good. Or I developed standard SOPs for my team to assess insect infections, monitor their progress, and provided coaching and feedback, analyze data, presented findings in a national meeting, published. You get the idea of the difference there. So if you need help in wordsmithing, borrow it from other job postings and tailor it so it reflects what you have done. In addition to that, logging, something that you don't think about, record problems that you've had at work or in your career or in your personal life, any kind of problems that you have dealt with and how you overcame them, because what those do is become really great examples for when you do your job interview. And again, the state uses that STAR type interview, and a lot of different companies use that as well. And it's really a bunch of different questions that are like, tell me about a time when you had a interaction with a difficult customer. What did you do? So many of them are phrased like that. So remembering like the significant experiences that you have gone through and successfully overcame is pretty critical. Always review your information before you go in an interview. Practice with a friend, even an ex-employer that might be willing to work with you, and do all of that internet and networking research to make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into. As far as networking goes, keep in touch with the people that you already know. You never know when they're going to be your next into a new career. at work, volunteer for tasks and projects that are new, that put you in an uncomfortable place, but that put you with a group of new people. Building your networking group is so important. Social media for your organization, if they have it, follow it, like it, show that you care about it. Get involved in opportunities if they offer them at your work, like job shadowing or mentoring or employee success programs. Just being involved and having your face present at some of these things shows that, you know, you are a go-getter and you want to advance your career. And last but not least, I want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. The first one is from a friend that is a engineering manager at Ford. And he has always told me, being good at your job doesn't get you promoted. Doing the other things that aren't your job does. So what he's referring to is the things I just mentioned, doing the extra things that are asked of you or even not asked of you if you volunteer for some of those things. Those get noticed, sometimes even more than whatever your actual job duties are. And then from my personal experience, being good at your job is often second to having great people skills. So if two people, you know, have equal skills at something and they're both interviewing for a job, that person that is the outgoing, friendly, sociable person is going to get the job. So, you know, I'm generally an introvert. And no matter how hard it is for you, I say that is a big thing to do. Work on your people skills, get yourself out there. It's so critical. And that is it for my 15 minutes. And I got a lot of screens going here, so I'm going to try and figure out how to stop sharing.
Thank you, Molly. And yeah, and thank you for all the ideas about tailor the cover letter and the job hopping, and also fundamental. That's really important. And we are having Stephanie to share with us her experience, also her insights.
Okay, so yeah, I'm Steffi Rhodes, former Teats, and I can, how do I advance? Here we go, maybe. Okay, there we go. So I am actually German, and I got my bachelor back in Germany at the University of Münster in just standard biology, basically. It was kind of new to have a bachelor's in Europe. We used to have like a different system before, and so the bachelor's was like a new thing, and I was like, hey, let's do that. It was only a 3-year program, and it was all about chemistry, physics, biology, a little bit of everything. I had gotten interested in biology as I did an internship in a analytical chemistry lab when I was in high school. That got me into science because that it was kind of consumer protection. They were testing baby food. They were testing diapers for any contaminants that could hurt babies. They were testing anything, like a lot of the foods. So I really liked that because I was like, hey, this is sciencey, but it's also applied. And that really got me into even going into biology. I liked animals and plants. And then towards the end of my bachelor's, I got in touch with a professor during my bachelor thesis that was like, hey, I'm going to the US. I know you really like English, and because I had written my bachelor thesis that he had read in English. So he was like, are you interested in going to do a PhD with me in the US? And I was like, why not? It was a full ride. He could basically, if I was like a good student, promise me that I had 5 years of an assistantship to do my PhD and do that work. So this was it was a molecular plant science program, and he was working on like photosynthesis and spectroscopy. So I was like, yeah, this sounds like fun. So I joined him at Washington State University. So I always during that time I worked with a German PI, which kind of made me feel a little bit more like home, but I also like integrated into the US, I guess. So after I graduated there, I went to do a postdoc with Michigan State University. That also came through connections. So I didn't, oh, sorry, I didn't have to actually apply for the job. One professor that used to be at Washington State University decided to move to Michigan State University. And when I graduated, he basically was like, oh, would you like to join me for a postdoc for a few years? He figured he could use some of my skills of what I had learned during my PhD. But yeah, so I also didn't really apply for any jobs during all of this time. I just kind of always fell into the next one. But a few things that I have learned since then, and I eventually just had to get out of academia and decided this wasn't for me. I never wanted to be a PI, so I always had to eventually find a job not in academia. So here are some personal tips. Research the job market to kind of see what's out there, and start this like way before you need one, just so that you can prepare yourself for what is out there and what people are looking for. And then keep in mind, like, what do you find most interesting? What would be an acceptable pay for you? I always knew like I wasn't gonna like make bank in doing what I do. I just wanted to have a job that I love. So for me, ending up in a public office seems like about right. I'm not making a lot of money, but I'm doing what I love and I can serve people. You also want to try to be in an area you want to be in. I happen to end up in Michigan and I'm happy with that. And then also identify the skills that you might need for potential jobs. Shape your research project towards what you need. You can also, if you like see, I might need like some experience managing a lab, like try to adapt and step into new roles in what position you have. Like I think Molly mentioned earlier, this like you want to do your job and then you want to try to do another job and kind of impress that way. And then also sign up for any training you can find on getting more skills. If you get the opportunity or want the opportunity, try to find an internship. These are available with state government. If you're lucky and you can find them. Sometimes it's also good to just like contact people and be like, hey, I'm interested in what you do. Can I job shadow? It's always good to get your name out there. And these are good during part-time in the summer. And then also apply for jobs. I almost talked myself out of the job opportunity that I have, like the job that I have right now. I almost didn't even apply because I was like, this is plant pathology. I have never done plant pathology. But the good thing was the person hiring me wasn't looking for a plant pathologist. She was looking for someone that knew molecular biology and could run a PCR. So I was actually perfect for the job, but I didn't even know. So I'm happy I applied and it all worked out. But and my husband was like, at least like use the interview to gain experience. Like he was like, don't like try it. Like you might, like if you don't get the job, you don't get the job, but at least you know how like the state interview process works, because it is a little different from other jobs. So he was like, do it. And I did, and I was glad I did, because otherwise I wouldn't have a job right now. So it worked out. And so always make sure to try it. And then here's so how I found my job is like the first thing I did is I updated my like LinkedIn, and like currently it's updated with my current position, but I just kind of like updated it and put some like, you can set up yourself for job alerts. And I did basically anything in like the science world, any company in the area. And I just kind of followed everything to see what's out there and get some insights. And then another thing that I did, and this is how I found the job that was ended up being perfect for my skill set was there's this website, Government Jobs Careers Michigan. You can, under menu in the top left, you can sign yourself up for job alerts. And here are some of the ones that I had picked, like agriculture, lab, environmental services, and natural resources. And those were like my highlights of like things that I was interested in working with the state. And you can set up like a little account and it will give you an email alert anytime a job in that area pops up. And so one fateful day in 2019, I got an email alert for this lab scientist job. And I was like, oh my God, it's perfect. And so I also have a few tips on like what I did to tailor my CV and my my resume and my cover letter to this job. So it was a plant pathology lab laboratory scientist. And I have no background in plant pathology, so I was already like, I don't know if I fit. But for education, it says someone with a bachelor's in chemistry, biochemistry, biology, microbiology, forensic science, or any related pure or applied science. I was like, hey, I got that. So I was like, I guess I can try it. And then I looked a little bit closer at the position description, and here's an example for a job that does every now and then get posted, maybe not specific for plant pathology, but for other lab positions. Duty 1, assist the lab manager with testing for like certification program surveys. That's like easy. Assisting is always good. Coordinate the lab operations and maintenance activities, also something that I think almost everyone that has ever worked in a lab can do. And then it also says develop and manage a quality management system. I actually had to look up what a quality management system is when I came across this PD. But it's also something that like everyone that works in a lab can apply themselves to. Like it's a little bit more documentation of what you do, like standard operating procedures of what you do in the lab and that kind of stuff. Also documenting like when you run a PCR, what exactly are you putting into your mix and stuff like that. So it's also something easily done. And then the last one was assist the lab manager with training activities for the staff. And that's just training. I had trained students in the past, so training people was one of my fortes too. So what do you do when you're overqualified? So this job, I was definitely overqualified because I had a PhD and I had 4 years of experience in the lab. Write a great cover letter and tailor your CV to the position. And Molly mentioned this earlier and she had some awesome ideas, and that's exactly what you have to do. Write it so specific. I basically was like, and it was true, like I want to be in a diagnostic lab. I like serving. I love the work in the lab. I didn't highlight like my papers. I didn't highlight publications because that didn't matter. And I just wrote that it was my perfect job. I needed it. Conveying that is like a little bit of wordsmithing, trying to make it so that you're not like falling over yourself and how awesome you are, but you do want to highlight that like I wrote down all the methods that I had learned over the years. I wrote down that I have organized lab procedures for like the quality management system side. So I really just like try to highlight all those things that were in the duties listed. I just made sure it was all in there. So here's a little bit of an example. So this is what my resume looked like on one page. So I just highlighted all my collaborations with different professors. And then a little bit of my experience was that I was responsible for managing undergraduates. I developed SOPs and prepared everything in like one lab. So like I basically ran a lab already. So I was like, hey, here, look, I can do this. And then also I was qualified to do extractions. previously not in plant pathology world, but I had done a lot of extractions on plants. So I just applied everything that I knew to this job specifically. Yeah, and it ended up working out, and I got the job, and it ended up being a perfect fit. My supervisor, when she was hiring, was looking for someone that could fill in the blanks of things that she didn't know. So she was not proficient in molecular detection for pest diseases in plants. She knew it like a bit of the old school way without molecular biology, but she didn't. So she needed someone specifically like me. And I can learn the plant pathology over the years, and I have already learned a lot in the last 3 years. So yeah, happy story, I guess, maybe. And so if you have any questions ever, just shoot me an email or ask right now.
Yeah, we'll extend our webinar to 50. And I see that Piero has a question. Can you talk a little bit about that? I will let you into the room.
Are you talking about the last comment that I wrote in the chat?
Yes.
Oh, okay. No, it would just I guess like a comment or an answer to your being overqualified, if it's like a negative or positive term. I guess since we are talking about, you know, tailoring your profile, your CV, or your resume or cover letter, whatever it is. I guess your overqualified or your overqualified profile can also become a pretty good fit for some sort of for any employer, or it's still a negative thing like being overqualified. Hopefully not, because we spend all these, you know, years overqualifying ourselves and during the PhD, so it can be, I don't know, a little bit bad, right?
Yeah, and I think so it can definitely be good or bad. In my case, it ended up working out. I did also, sorry, I also got a little bit of a pay cut starting out, but now that that has vanished, so I definitely make more now than I would in an academic setting. But yeah, it's always a little bit of a balance of like how much do you want to sell yourself, and then also like just convincing them to give you a chance, I guess. Because yeah, I mean, when they hired me, they were worried that I would be bored at what I do, or that I was just like I was looking for more research and stuff like that, and I really wasn't. I didn't like research that much, so it ended up working out.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Stephen.
Yes, I wanted to also share my experience. Yeah, just like Stephanie, yeah. I mean, I also joined MDARD, I mean, with a PhD, but when I was applying for positions, I mean, like you don't put, publications in your resume, because, those are not what, are gonna market you for the work you're gonna do. So as long as you're interested in the position, yes, whether you're overqualified or not, what matters is, are you ready to do that position, and are you ready to take the pay that is for that position? Because I entered at also the lowest level in MDARD, of course, with lower pay, yes, like Stefan said, yeah. So you must be ready. You must evaluate yourself. Are you ready to take up that position? First of all, are you ready to go to be paid at that scale and to do that kind of work? I think that's what would drive you into going forward with that position. You forget whatever, because like I said last time, the PhD is not what they consider to take you into MDARD. So you'll start at the level where the position is advertised. So if you like it and you are ready to do it, go for it. Yeah, but you will grow through the system, and everything else will even out over time. And yeah, so yeah, once you're interested in it and you have the skills and what it takes, just apply, and yeah, because I remember I was interviewed, I applied for about 6 positions within MDARD before I got my current one. The other ones were, higher level positions, which I didn't even know that I couldn't get, but somehow they kept shortlisting me, shortlisting and interview me for some of those positions, although I'm sure they knew they wouldn't give me the positions, but they probably saw that let's, give this guy a chance. Maybe at some point he will join the system. I think they saw that there's something I had that they could take me in at the right stage. So yeah, but later on, yeah, someone within spoke to me and said, yeah, these are promotional positions. You cannot enter at this level. But if you're interested in our field positions, which would be advertised later, then you can apply for them. And indeed, when they did, I applied. But I had still applied for others, which were a bit higher up, and yeah. So.
Thank you, Stefan. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I have a lot of questions in my mind, but we are at the 50 mark, and we will have the slides uploaded, and also the recordings uploaded later. And you can also email us, and if you have any more questions. And we're going to wrap up the webinars and switch over to our cohort conversation. So if you are not part of our cohort, and goodbye, and hope we'll see you on August 11th, or Stefan will definitely share us a great story. And we had a great conversation today, and we're going to improve our website with more materials once we wrap up the whole series. And yeah, and hope see you next time. Next time is August 11th.
Thank you for having us.